5 days. That is the distance between today and a date a 20-year-old drew on a calendar 7 months ago. Abhigya Anand, a soft-spoken astrology student from southern India, circled the 24th of July, 2026, and told the world to watch. He has issued a warning like this once before, and that is what has people paying attention now. Here is the part that keeps people up at night. This is not his first date on a calendar. 6 years ago, barely 14, he recorded a warning about a specific window of months, and the world walked straight into it. No crystal ball. No vision. Just old charts, planetary positions, and a boy reading the sky the way his grandfather taught him. And it landed. So who is he, really? Not a celebrity. Not a scientist. A soft-spoken student of Vedic astrology, trained since the age of 7 in a discipline thousands of years old. He talks in slow, careful English about planets most people never think about: Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, like characters in a story that is already written, and we are only now reaching the chapter he warned us about. The numbers around him are staggering. His videos have been watched tens of millions of times, translated into a dozen languages, dissected frame by frame in comment sections across the world. In India, he is a household name. Abroad, he is the internet's favorite question nobody can answer: how did a teenager, working from a small town with nothing but ancient texts, keep pointing at dates that history then decided to honor? To understand him, understand the system he works in. Vedic astrology, or Jyotisha, does not read your mood or your love life. It reads cycles, the slow grind of planets through the sky, conjunctions that repeat only once every few hundred years. When two heavy planets like Saturn and Rahu line up, practitioners say one era ends and another is born. It is not about tomorrow. It is about the shape of a whole age. Anand learned to read these charts the way a sailor reads weather. Before satellites, people watched the sky for a living, because their harvest, their war, their survival depended on it. He inherited that. In dim rooms full of paper and old star tables, he maps planetary angles, notes the tension between Mars and Saturn, and marks the windows when, he says, the pressure has nowhere to go but out. Skeptics roll their eyes, and that is fair. Astrology has no laboratory, no peer review, no way to prove cause. But here is what sets Anand apart from the horoscope in the back of a magazine. He does not say good things will come to Laos. He names regions. He names months. He names the kind of event. And that specificity is exactly why, when one of those calls lands, you cannot shrug it off as luck. And one of them landed so hard it changed everything for him. But before we get to the prediction that made his name, the one people still argue about 6 years later, you need to see how quiet the world was when he made it. Nobody was watching a 14-year-old with a webcam. There was no reason to. Which is exactly what makes what happened next so unsettling. In the summer of 2019, life felt ordinary. Markets were calm. Borders were open. The word pandemic belonged to history books and disaster movies. Nobody was preparing for anything. And into that unbothered world, a boy uploaded a video with a title that, back then, sounded like the overreaction of a dramatic kid, and today reads like something nobody should have been able to write. The video was called, roughly, Severe Danger to the World from November 2019 to April 2020. Say those dates again, slowly. He uploaded it in August 2019, months before the first cases, months before the word we all learned to dread. He described a period of global crisis tied to a Saturn alignment, told people to build up their immunity, to be careful with what spreads through the air. And then the calendar turned to November. You know what came next, because you lived it. By early 2020, the world he described was the world we were living in. Locked doors. Empty streets. A planet holding its breath. His followers went back, found that old video still sitting there with its timestamp, and did the math. The window he named and the window the world fell into were, give or take, the same window. The clip exploded. Suddenly everybody was watching. And it did not stop there. His supporters point to a whole list: the Russia-Ukraine war, the conflict in the Middle East, a powerful earthquake in Taiwan, as calls he made before they happened. They quote a 98% accuracy rate for his top predictions. Hold that number loosely, because we will come back to it. But even the harshest skeptic still has to explain that first video. And nobody really can. Here is the honest part, and it matters. Anand has also missed. He warned of a third world war that did not come. He said the pandemic would fully end on dates that slipped. Predictions are slippery things, leave them vague enough, and the mind fills the gaps on its own. But the 2019 call was not vague. It named months. It named a threat in the air. And it was posted before there was anything to copy. That is the one nobody can wave away. Which brings us back to that December video, and the 3 dates he circled for this year. Anand says 2026 is not just another year. He calls it a 400-year turning point, the moment Saturn and Rahu meet and, in his words, the old order collapses so a new one can be born. And he did not leave it abstract. He gave windows. The end of April. Around the 24th of July. The middle of November. Look at that second date again. July 24th. As this goes out, that window is days away. He tied these stretches to heightened tension, seismic pressure along the Pacific Ring of Fire, what he called the dragon of the Pacific Plate waking up, and geopolitical flashpoints across East Asia and the South China Sea. When the pressure builds, he says, these are the weeks it looks for a way out. Then come the specifics that make investors, not just mystics, lean in. He predicted gold would climb dramatically, some versions of his forecast say up to 4 times its recent price, driven by economic shock and currencies people stopped trusting. And gold has, in fact, been smashing records. He warned of food and resource scarcity as war and climate collide. Then he issued one more warning that lands strangely in 2026. He warned about artificial intelligence. Anand said that if humanity leans on these systems too hard, without the wisdom to guide them, the intelligence we built could turn against the people who built it, that this, not any earthquake, would be the defining challenge of the new era. Say what you want about planets. But a young astrologer flagging an AI reckoning, in the exact year the whole world is arguing about exactly that, is a coincidence with unervingly good timing. So where does that leave us, 5 days out from a date a 20-year-old drew on a calendar 7 months ago? Science has no mechanism for any of this. Planets do not cause earthquakes. Correlation is not a crystal ball. A careful mind should hold all of it at arm's length, and that 98% number almost certainly flatters him. All of that is true. And yet millions of people are quietly bracing anyway. Not because they can prove he is right, but because they remember the last time they laughed at a boy with a webcam and then spent 2 years in masks. That memory is the whole engine here. It is why a soft-spoken student from southern India can name a date and watch half the internet mark it down, just in case he is right again. Maybe July 24th passes like any other day, the skeptics get their easy laugh, and the windows blur into the noise the way most predictions do. That is the likeliest outcome, honestly. Most prophecies fail quietly. But the reason this one refuses to die is not the earthquake, or the gold, or the AI. It is a single old video with a 2019 timestamp that still sits online, still says what it says, and still dares you to explain it. So here's what he actually called, the date you now know is coming. Abhigya Anand circled the 24th of July, 2026, months before you or I gave it a thought, and said, watch the Pacific, watch the tension, watch the sky. In 5 days, we find out if the boy who called the last one just called it again. Mark the date. Then decide for yourself. The calendar, after all, keeps its own kind of count. That's the story. If you'd watch one more like this, hit subscribe and I'll have another ready soon.